we will now move to session 4. Stella, are you?
I'm here. Hi.
Okay, so you can start sharing your screen.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I will introduce you. So, Estela Lo Vallejo is the European Project Manager at our European Bioplastics, with over a decade of experience in European Union public affairs, policy, stakeholder engagement, and EU project management. She focuses on connecting research with policy, particularly in the fields of sustainability, innovation, and bioplastics. Her expertise includes the European regulatory and standardization landscape related to the recycling of biopolymers. She holds a master's degree in European interdisciplinary studies. So welcome and thank you again for accepting our invitation. So you can start.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everyone, for the invitation to join you at this hybrid workshop for REDONDO. It was very interesting to hear all the previous speakers and to learn more about what you do. So I'll try to contribute to this with my part of knowledge, and in the hopes that we make lots of connections on the science and innovation and research. So as Carla said, I'm going to speak about policy and the standardization landscape for biopolymers recycling at EU level. This is a very big topic, so I have obviously chosen just some specificities. This is what I'm going to be talking about. I hope you're seeing the full screen and not and not at the display. You never know with Teams. So this is what I'm going to be talking about. First, just very quickly, who are we? Who am I? Probably there's no need about this, but what are bioplastics? Then I'm going to be talking about more on the policy frameworks, so the legislation and the initiatives of the European Union, and then on the standardization with the ramifications with certification and labeling, all this from the perspective of bioplastics. Obviously, as you heard, so I work for European Bioplastics, and we are a European association with more than 30 years of experience, and we bring together the bioplastics industry along the entire value chain in Europe. So our top priority is to advocate for a stable and supportive EU policy framework for bioplastics to thrive. This, as many of you have mentioned before me, there are several pieces of regulation that are related to this, from LCA methodology, PEF, the Safe and Sustainable by Design, ESPR. Those are just a little bit, and these are the ones who are really looking into the detail, but they're more bigger frameworks. And we, from our perspective as European Bioplastics, we try to advocate for a supportive framework in all this regard. So what do we do more specifically? We're a knowledge hub. We have over 80 members, manufacturers of biopolymers, technology providers. We have research and technology institutes, certifiers, universities. We really represent the value chain of European bioplastics, and we gather insights and share insights about the policy framework. We connect our members with potential business partners. We foster collaboration along the value chain. We identify political and legislative opportunities and challenges to actually make sure that the framework is supportive. And we contribute to public consultations, participate in expert groups at EU level, and also, as you can imagine from my title, we participate in research and innovation projects, both Horizon Europe, mainly Horizon Europe, and the CBEJU. And I'll speak about a couple of projects on the recycling of bioplastics. So I don't think that we need to really speak a lot about what are bioplastics, but just so that we are clear, what am I talking about is when I refer to bioplastics are bio-based, biodegradable, or both. So this is the framework in which we operate, the association, and this is the material coordinate system for bioplastics that we work upon. and the research and innovation projects in which we are participating, usually as responsible for regulatory affairs, policy, standardization, certification, labeling, and dissemination to industrial stakeholders, obviously, because that's where we come from. So this is this information you can find in our website. Importantly for this workshop and the topic that we are talking about are obviously the end-of-life options for bioplastics, for bio-based and biodegradable, or both, right? And we're speaking here about recycling. So here we're speaking at European Bioplastics about mechanical recycling, advanced or chemical recycling, and organic recycling. And this scheme also you can find on our website. No, so end-of-life options exist: mechanical, chemical, organic, reuse, energy recovery, right, for bioplastics, but recycling pathways for biopolymers are not harmonized. Big shock, no, they're not. And the key issue is that policy is moving fast sometimes, or at least initiatives, but standards, for example, for recycling, they lag behind. This is something, a conclusion that we have as an association. How all the already regulations or methodologies that, of course, they are not standalone in the myriad of methodologies and standards and regulations that we need to comply with when developing these materials and applications for these materials. There is a myriad of initiatives. Sorry, it's not working, my mouse, yes. This is only a snapshot of some of the main policy frameworks, strategies, initiatives that make the big picture since 2018 is in this case until now. That are the ones informing then all the other regulatory measures that we have to be compliant with now and in the future, obviously, because there are some things that are adopted that then they're only implemented afterwards, they enter into force later, or you need more to develop a methodology and a criteria afterwards. And for example, a good example is this packaging waste regulation. In this case, REDONDO is not developing packaging applications, but the Circular Economy Action Plan, the Green Deal, all these myriad are drivers and constraints for recycling of biopolymers. We have here, especially important for the recycling of biopolymers, will be the European Green Deal, the new Circular Economy Action Plan, the Waste Framework Directive revision, and the revision of the Circular Economy Act that it's actually happening right now. For packaging is the PPWR. And this is a snapshot that, and this is the scene in which we operate. On specific legislation on recycling and recycled plastics. So I try to here really make a very brief summary of the most important legislation that we follow and monitor regarding the recycling and recycled bioplastics. So we have obviously REACH, the chemical safety framework, and this applies to recycled materials that must comply with restrictions, registration requirements, etc. For example, PVC for pipes, etc. I'm not going to enter into details of all of this, but REACH is obviously important, very important legislation for this matter. The Eco Design for Sustainable Products regulation that has been mentioned by Elena and Helena, I think by several actually speakers. So this is also very, very key. We'll introduce the digital product passports and recyclability, recycled content requirements beyond packaging, likely to cover construction products and electronics, including cables and pipes. So this is very, very important. We also have the EU taxonomy and green claims eco-labeling initiatives that indirectly impact claims made on recycled content. Then we have the Waste Framework Directive that establishes the waste hierarchy and the extended producer responsibility linked to it, sets overall recycling targets, for municipal waste and packaging. And this is also very key. And then second part, I have to mention it because it's quite crucial for our sector, because packaging is quite a big share of the current application market for bioplastics. So the packaging waste regulation, if you have not heard about it, but I'm pretty sure most of you have, it's pretty game-changing, and since it establishes mandatory recycled content targets for plastic packaging and recyclability and enabling requirements. Then there's the Single-Use Plastics Directive and the regulation on recycled plastic materials and articles intended for food contact, which are also being reviewed. So together, everything that I just showed in this snapshot and these two slides, as you can see, there is just really a big landscape. So all these laws set the policy and standardization landscape for recycled plastics, especially important for biopolymers recycling, because they're often assessed under the same frameworks. Therefore, so there are more, of course, and out of our scope and expertise, or European bioplastics, and of course all the framework in the previous slide. So there are other regulations like the construction products regulation that sets harmonized rules for marketing of construction. There's the revision of proposal on sustainability and recycling content requirements. So there's much more than this, but this is just to show that the policy landscape sometimes is very complex and moves fast, because this is proposed by the European Commission and their services together with other agencies of the European Union. And then this is mostly, in most cases, the big legislation is negotiated with the European Parliament, its members and the committees and the councils of the member states. This is very complex, and sometimes it moves at a path that is disconnected with where the research and innovation is working and what the industry can also, how the industry can adapt to it. So this is for the policy side. On the standardization, certification and labeling, we, European Bioplastics, we are a member of technical committees of the European Committee for Standardization, CEN, and also active in selected national standardization bodies like DIN, that's the German national body mirroring the committees at CEN. In each country there is one. UNE in Spain, where I come from, for example, UNI in Italy, AFNOR, etc. So we are also involved there. We support and influence relevant standardization through the participation in these committees at DIN and CEN, and we support also independent third-party certification. And we also own this logo, this seedling mark for industrial compostability. And this is awarded by DIN Cerco and TÜV Austria. So we provide insights on standardization, certification, and labeling, because this is very much obviously connected with the products being in the market. How can I then contribute? How do we contribute from the side of EU projects or with on standardization, and how can EU projects contribute to this policy framework and this standardization work that is so very much connected? Well, in many forms actually. But first, why is it important? Let's go back to the obvious. Well, standardization is really, for example, in Horizon Europe and CBE and in the CBE JU projects as well, is identified as a measure to support the market take up of the outcome of a research and innovation project. So this is the growing relevance of standardization in the context of research projects is really growing a lot. And this is really reflected on the core topics, actually. And this is, for example, how we are now involved in 7 projects, and I think in most of them we are, if not leading, supporting standardization activities in these projects, because these are in the core topics, actually. So the question is, how can we, as a consortium in the project, best address this call for standardization activities that are so key to make sure that the work that we're doing both in projects, but also in the industry, actually are really standardized. So the proposal itself, when we're writing it, we can commit to developing a standardization roadmap, and that's what we have done in many cases. As a project deliverable, what we do normally is an overview of the landscape of the standards specific to the activities, the products, the development, and the processes that we are going to do in a project. Call it roadmap, call it overview. We do a scan and identification of where is the project standing and in which activities at SEN level and are actually in the sphere of the activities of the project. So that's what we do in most of our projects. These are the projects that we're currently working on, and this is where we contribute absolutely from the outset, even in the proposal. Then we can contribute as well to the development of existing or new standards. And this is where I have 2 examples here. This can be, first of all, the contribution to the development of existing or new standards can be done through these national standardization bodies that I just mentioned, UNE, UNI, DIN, AFNOD. You surely know which is the one in your member state. So most standardization deliverables are developed in the technical committees in SEN and in these mirror bodies. So one possibility is through project partners, any of you, going to your national standardization body in the technical committees and sitting there, meetings and contributing to documents, etc. Another way that a consortium has to actually contribute to the standardization activities is applying for liaison status within the relevant technical committee or committees. And this is something that we have also done with a number of our projects with Moebius, with Biomac, and some of others that in BioCycle, that's in the previous slide. And this is where we have submitted a request to send to the technical committee because we have already identified that in that particular committee, they're working on a topic in which we are operating in the project and to which we can contribute. So this enables the project to participate in and contribute without voting rights, but to the activities of the technical committee. And that's what we have done in what we're doing in Moebius, and that's what we did with Biomac as well, which we were partnered with some people around here in the workshop, especially with ISQ, and we were partners in this project that finished in last June, and in which we not only realized this overview of the landscape, we also were monitoring exactly where the issues were more relevant for us. And this had to do a lot with an exercise internally in the project to identify where are we creating value, where are we creating innovation that actually can contribute to the standardization of processes, products, materials, etc. And that's where we identified a particular topic. And with Biomac, we did the liaison status, and we went further away. We created a KUA, or a workshop agreement, it's called, but there's the workshop agreement CWA called KUA. And we developed this with the direct participation of interest parties. So in Moebius, I'm not going to go much in specifics of this. You will have the presentation. But the overall objective of Moebius is to demonstrate novel recycling routes for bioplastics waste streams along the end of life within 3 value chains: textile, agriculture, and packaging, and towards new upcycle high-value products. And this is where we, as with this project liaison, we're following the group of the technical committee in charge of drafting the design for recycling guidelines the design for recycling guidelines coming from the PPWR, from the packaging waste regulation. In this case, since this is where the project is working on biodegradable plastics. So what do? They are documents that are being worked in the committees. We kicked off our liaison status in April 2025, and basically we have this liaison and presence in several working groups without voting rights, but we're following discussions and we can provide insights to the project consortium, but we can also get from CEN, and we are contributing to guidelines that are going to be setting the design for recycling criteria for the future. The other example that I have is about BioMAC, what I said, the workshop agreement. And in this case, what we did, BioMAC responds to European Sustainable Bio-Based Nanomaterials Community. And this Horizon 2020 project established an open innovation testbed and for scaling up processes of nanostructured bio-based materials and facilitating and accelerating the market entrance of these materials. And here what we did is, again, the same, mapping the relevant standards. We signed a contract with UNE, the Spanish national standardization body, and we requested the creation of a CUA, and we pitched the project to the technical committee, in this case 352, and the partner in charge of this was Zinano, that formalized the CUA text, and this was published then, and it was on ultrasound assisted production of lignin nanoparticles and for the workshop draft project plan. So this was concluded in June 2025. So these are very particular examples of how can we contribute to the work of the standardization bodies. So you have, I'm taking a bit too much time, so I'm gonna go quickly through this. Explain what a CUA is. So basically, this is this workshop agreement means several meetings, actually, in which you propose a form, a document, introducing some novelty, and then this is discussed with other interested stakeholders, and at the end, it is actually finalized in a document that then will be reviewed 3 years later to see if this is going to be continued or not, and that this could be used by CEN, can decide to actually make it into a standard. So this is kind of like the process to do a pre-standardization activity that might turn out into kicking off as a new standard or reviewing a standard. So here's where you can see this is the final product, and you will have it on my presentation when it's shared. So the key takeaways from all that I said, I tried to condense as much as possible in my knowledge on this presentation. So policies are evolving fast, but standardization is lagging, and we need to align this to be able to scale recycling of biopolymers. There is a stronger role of EU standardization bodies, industry input, and the projects like REDONDO, BioMAC, Moebius to contribute to this. And we can contribute to the work of CEN and ISO, and I invite you to use these tools to actually do it, because it's very crucial. And that would be it. I have just some slides on if you're interested in going to attending some of our events on bioplastics recycling cluster talks. I'll put the link on the chat so you can see it. And we are in Berlin in December if you would like to attend. And you have all the information, and you can always reach me anytime at my email address. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Estela, once again for accepting the invitation and for all your efforts that you've been doing to try to accelerate the scale up of these bioplastics.